Hello everyone, thank you for taking the time to watch my video today. Today I will be explaining the Answers in Genesis approach to discipleship. Now I know what you might be thinking, like what makes this approach so special, but buckle up because we're about to explore a very unique take on Christian education that is quite literally taking the Bible literally, especially starting in Genesis, hence Answers in Genesis. So let's start with a little bit of backstory, shall we? So picture this. It's 1994, and a guy named Ken Ham is looking around the church and thinking something's not quite right here. He felt like people were drifting away from taking the Bible at face value as what was written, and they were trying to add their own interpretation and way too much of their own interpretation in it. So he's sitting there going, "What do I do?" And the answer was he started the program Answers in Genesis. Now, this wasn't a random idea. Like, it wasn't something that he was just like, poof, and here it is. This had been something inspired by an ongoing debate that had been going on in the U.S. back then and is still going now. And many of you know it. It's creationism versus evolution. Answers in Genesis really jumps right into the middle of it. Kevin Ham and the other co-authors of Answers in Genesis really wanted to give like Christians the tools to be able to stand firm in their faith and help understand the difference between what the Bible wrote and what they were hearing in school or in class, especially when it came to believing the teachings of the young earth. It literally is them saying, let's take it back to the basics and take Genesis seriously. Because he believed that if you don't believe Genesis, you can't believe the rest of the Bible because the rest of the Bible happened because of what happened in Genesis. All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of it. Answers in Genesis, like I said, is all about believing the Bible is written the way it's written, and you're supposed to take it at face value, and that the Bible is 100% accurate. When they read about creation, Adam and Eve, Noah and the flood, different aspects of Genesis, they were not thinking, oh, these are just nice stories. They were thinking, this is exactly what happened, which is true. We are to take the Bible 100% at face value, how it's written. And if it's written that way, it's true. One big point that they believe that actually still causes some debates now regarding creation is that Answers in Genesis points out that the earth is around roughly 6,000 years old. And this is according to biblical records that they have found. They have gone back through Genesis and tallied up everybody's birth dates when it says something like he was this many years old when this kid was born and this many years old when this one was born. And they were able to track it back and go all the way to see how old the earth actually was. And this was way different from what they were hearing, as well as we're hearing now in science class about the Big Bang explosion and that the earth is millions of years old. So for them, though, it wasn't just about how old the earth is or how creation came about. It's about trusting that every word in the Bible is accurate and true. They have this idea that if you start doubting Genesis and not believing what is written and how it's written, it's like it's like pulling a thread on a sweater. And you know how like if you pull on it, suddenly it starts to unravel everywhere? Their approach to discipleship is all about reinforcing the belief and teaching people how to defend it so that they are accurately prepared for any conversation that they might be faced regarding Genesis. So let's talk a little bit about their game plan, so to say. So Answers in Genesis isn't just about sitting back and believing stuff as they're read or just believing what you're told. their whole philosophy is about equipping people to be, let's call them creation ambassadors. Imagine you're at a coffee shop one day and either the barista or somebody behind you starts talking about evolution and how evolution is how the world came about. Answers in Genesis wants you to be ready for conversations like that. They're giving people the arguments, comebacks, the whole script, so to say, as to how to answer people like this. So it's not just oh, what do I say? I don't know what I'm doing. They're literally giving you a game plan of, if you are faced with this, here is the answers you need. And if you don't remember the answers off the top of your head, how to respond to let people know that, like, oh, I'm not just faking this. I'm not just making it up. Here is where the evidence is. They are literally training an army of friendly debaters, so to say, which is really cool. But at the same time, their thing isn't about just winning arguments. They truly believe that understanding creation the way it is written is key to understanding the whole Christian message. It's like they're saying, get this right, and everything falls into place. Because like I stated before, you have to believe Genesis to be able to believe Revelation, and everything that falls in between happened because of a result of what happened in creation and in Genesis. So you may be wondering, like, how do they do all of this? Well, they basically have a toolkit for anybody who is wanting to use Answers in Genesis. I'm talking things like one-on-one mentoring programs, small group devotionals, big church curriculums, even Bible studies. They even do VBSs so that you have a way to interact with everybody of every level. You name it, they probably have it. They also have short courses if you're kind of just wanting to test the waters a little bit or dip your toe into how they do things. But they really do hope that you take a lifelong thing, that this becomes something that you use. My church has personally used Answers in Genesis for a long time, and at the different churches I have been to, we have used Answers in Genesis. So I do have a little bit of a love for them, but I also love that they don't just have paper resources. They literally have everything. Like, I mean, books if you're just wanting to read about it. They have online courses if you're interested. And like I said, even stuff for kids. And it really is like an all-you-can-eat buffet of creation material. And what's even better is outside of the books and resources that you can order, they've even got huge attractions like the Creation Museum and the Ark Encounter. And if you're kind of sitting there going, I don't know what either one of those are. So imagine Disneyland, that magical place on earth, but for biblical creation. And like the Creation Museum, you can walk through and you see the different aspects of creation. They pull in scripture. It's really cool. And then the Ark Encounter really is, they built Noah's Ark according to the measurements and guide that God gave Jonah in Genesis. And inside you can see like tons of different types of animals in there. And you can see how it kind of would have been what we think how it would have been laid out. That would make sense. And it's just really cool. And personally, I plan on visiting both of these places to record videos for my kids ministry YouTube page to talk about creation and talk about Noah's Ark. And I just honestly think it's a really cool place. And I do encourage y'all to look at it and research it. And if you ever get the chance to, go to it yourself. So now that I've told you all about Answers in Genesis and my personal views on it, let's take a step back and look at the overall big picture and answer the question that any paper is going to ask you: when you're researching something? What is the strength? Honestly, to me, it's crystal clear. There's no wishy-washy, maybe this, maybe that. It is all about having, 1,000,000% confidence in what the Bible says and in believing that it's written the way it's written and you're supposed to take it at face value. But with everything, there's always going to be that flip side. And I mean, we got to be honest about it. It can be pretty tough to square with a lot of scientific thinking. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but I've watched a couple of the debates where an atheist will debate a Christian, and I always sit there and wonder, how can you process their questions so fast? How can you come up with these answers unless you've in depth studied and you know everything about the Bible? And Answers in Genesis tries to help with that, but at the same time, it can't help you know everything. And if you're in a place where everyone's on board with the same view you are, like a church or a Bible study group, I mean, that's great. It's going to help. But when you step outside of that Bible, in that bubble, you're going to find yourself in some pretty intense conversations. And if you're not ready for it, you're going to be at a loss. And you're either going to, one, unintentionally make someone say, well, if she doesn't know what she's talking about, why should I look into it? Why should I have anything to do with this Bible? Or two, you're going to find yourself starting to agree with what they say unintentionally and not understanding or realizing that it is not biblically accurate. And Answers in Genesis, it really works well in certain, Christian school, homeschooling situation, churches that are about doctrinal purity and, 100% Bible doctrine. But other settings, it's going to be harder to sell. It's going to be harder to address. It just might not always 100% of the time give you that accurate, or give you that ability to accurately decrypt what you're trying to portray. And honestly, is this for everyone? Probably not. There are some programs that I'm not a fan of, and there are people who are not a fan of Answers in Genesis. It all is about personal preference. But those who do connect with it and do like it, it offers a clear, consistent way of looking at faith. There isn't this book says look at it this way, this book says look at it this way. They all say look at it this way. And at the end of the day, it offers, like I said, a clear way of looking at faith and the world. But with any approach to faith, it's finding out what resonates with you and what helps you grow. There is no right or wrong. It really falls down on personal preference. So there you have it. The Answers in Genesis approach to discipleship, kind of in a nutshell. If you're interested on learning about more, you can visit their website. They have tons of resources. They have areas where you can ask questions. And, it really is a full-on commitment to taking Genesis literally and building a whole worldview from there. And the way I like to look at it is, if you have your worldview set in the beginning, it'll be so much easier to understand the end. So I just really wanted to say thank you for hanging in there with me. I know I was kind of a little all over the place. I'd love to answer any questions or see any of your thoughts that you may have in the comments, and I will try my very best to answer all of them. But other than that, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.